The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, participated in the commemorative acts where he received the national caravan of Bolivarian fury. In Palestine, several civilians were killed and others injured as part of the ongoing Israeli attacks on several localities in Gaza. And in Namibia, Vice President Nangolo Mbumba is sworn in as president following the death on Sunday of previous President Gamegop. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela commemorates on February 4th the Day of National Dignity on the 32nd year of the civic-military rebellion led by Commander Hugo Chavez. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, participated in the commemorative acts where he received the national caravan of Bolivarian fury, which came out on Saturday from several states of the country. During his speech, the Venezuelan president recalled that the rebellion of 1992 was against the imperialism that governed the country through the Venezuelan oligarchy. Maduro assured that elites and surnames who had power until the arrival of Commander Chavez will never govern the nation again.
Today, 32 years after February 4, 1992, I want to raise our eyes to heaven and say thank you, Commander Chavez. Thank you for your rebelliousness. Thank you for your courage. Long live Chavez.
During his speech, the Venezuelan head of state, Nicolás Maduro, recalled the historic events of February 4th and the rejection of the Venezuelan people to the model imposed by the International Monetary Fund.
In fact, I could say that the 90s had not even begun when they tried to impose in Venezuela the neoliberal colonialist model of the International Monetary Fund on February 27 and 28, 1989. They went down and down and down and down, and the people took to the streets and said not to the International Monetary Fund measures in popular rebellion.
The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, compared the military rebellion led by Comandante Chavez with the one led by the liberated Simón Bolívar, assuring that both were a rejection to imperialism and the oligarchies.
The 90s, and again, like 200 years ago, Venezuela in the vanguard of February 4, 1992, the military rebellion led by our commander Chavez, down with imperialism, the revolution of Bolívar, of the liberators, has arrived again, and so it was. Bolívar arrived with his cause, with his flag.
In this context, the great national caravan Bolivarian Fury arrived in Caracas to commemorate the Day of National Dignity. Thousands of citizens from different states took part in the great national caravan to mark 32 years of the rebellion of February 4, 1992. The Day of Dignity is a historical gesture that consolidated the Bolivarian Revolution thanks to the civic-military union that achieved the return of Commander Hugo Chavez. During the activity that commemorated the struggle of the Bolivarian Revolution, the first vice president of the Socialist Party of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, recalled that on February 4, 1992, Venezuela managed to subvert the neoliberal project that was trying to impose on the country. Also, members of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces carried out a civic-military march through the streets of Fort Tiuna, the most recognized and important military installation in the country. The activity took place on the occasion of the celebrations for the National Dignity Day. In El Salvador, electoral authorities reported that more than 50% of Salvadorans registered went to the polls in some voting centers. Among those who exercised their vote was the presidential candidate of the Farabundo Martín National Liberation Front, Manuel Flores, who highlighted the transparent campaign of his party, and around 4 p.m. local time, President Nayib Bukele also casted his vote in the middle of a strong security operation. According to polls, the current president would win with about 90% of difference. Otherwise, several candidates denounced delays in the opening of the polling centers. In the meantime, the far-right candidate out of the Nationalist Republican Alliance, Joel Sanchez, pointed out irregularities in the process despite affirmations of authorities such as the Attorney General of the Republic, Rodolfo Delgado, who said that they didn't receive any complaints. Amid election day, Salvadorian citizens stressed that in addition to the issue of security, it is necessary to improve the education sector in their country.
Honestly, besides security, I like to hear more about education. I feel like it's an area that hasn't been developed very much, and I think it's very important, especially for young people who are waiting for better opportunities.
We are hoping for progress more than there is currently in the country. I hope that the proposals of the current presidential candidates will be implemented as they were proposed during the campaign.
And on El Salvador election day, the presidential candidate for the Farabundo Martí National Liberation Front, Manuel Flores, denounced a series of irregularities and abusive actions by the government.
The abuse of power using the resources of the state, television channels, radio, press, with the complicity of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal. Accomplices, right? Cowards. I think it is a very difficult elections against the people, against the opposition, without the resources, without the political depth, with coercion, threats of layoff. They are asking public employees to send a photo of voting time. Cowardly shepherds who have made a statement now in favor of the government. All those kind of things, I imagine, are part of this abuse of power.
Also, the presidential candidate assured that the Salvadoran people will defeat the attempts to restrict their freedom through the vote.
I am aware that the Salvadoran people will defeat this fraud. Do you know why? Because we cannot allow them to restrict freedom of expression and to steal the vote from people. Today the story will be different from the way they think. A story in which the people will speak out and will speak out in silence, but with joy, with enthusiasm, but with laughter, because enthusiasm and laughter will defeat hatred and misery.
The Guatemalan Migration Institute (IGM) reported that 11 people were killed in a traffic accident on Saturday. 9 people died at the scene at kilometer 133 of the route leading from Guatemala City to the Pacific coast, while 2 died in a health center. According to the IGM, 9 of the deceased were Cubans and were traveling north to reach the United States. The accident happened in the early hours of Saturday morning and involved a truck carrying sugarcane, a car with a capacity of just over 5 passengers, and a motorcycle. Guatemala initiated the process of communication from foreign relations so that the deceased could be repatriated by the authorities of Cuba. Argentina's security ministry said on Sunday that federal police Interpol agents arrested businessman Diego Hernan Diricio and his partner Paraguayan ex-model Julieta Nardi last Friday in the province of Córdoba, accused of leading a network that trafficked arms to Brazil. Hernan Diricio is considered the biggest arms smuggler in South America and was the president of a company dedicated to firearms trade, of which Nardi was vice president. The company acquired the weapons in Croatia, Turkey, the Czech Republic, and Slovenia, brought them legally into Paraguay, and then imported them into Brazil, where they were resold to a third party who was responsible for delivering the weapons to local criminal organizations. According to the Argentine Ministry of Security, the company had imported 25,000 weapons since 2012. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Local media in Palestine on Sunday reported that several civilians were killed and others injured as part of ongoing Israeli attacks on several localities in Gaza. In this regard, the report adds that the Israeli bombardment targeted civilians in the Al-Heker area in the city of Deir al-Balah. On the other hand, 3 other civilians were killed in a drone strike targeting an area near Al-Saraya, along with another Israeli attack on a family home in the Al-Rimal neighborhood that claimed the lives of 4 civilians. In this regard, Palestinian authorities also warned that the Israeli helicopter gunships opened heavy fire on the Burej refugee camp in central Gaza, while in Tel Aviv's warplanes targeted the vicinity of the Abu Bakr as-Siddiq Mosque in the Al-Sabra neighborhood. Since the beginning of the Israeli aggression, more than 27,365 people, mostly children and women, have been killed and more than 66,630 injured. On Sunday, Canada joined the United States in imposing sanctions to 4 Israeli settlers involved in terrorist attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that Israel colonist violence against Palestinians in the West Bank is absolutely unacceptable and puts peace and stability in the region and the path toward the two-state solution at risk. On February 1st, U.S. President Joe Biden had issued an executive order targeting Israeli settlers involved in attacks and acts of violence against Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. The U.S. also imposed financial sanctions and visa bans against the 4 settlers involved. In 2023, some 10 Palestinian civilians were killed by Israeli settlers. A senior Hamas official said Saturday that the group's leadership was studying a proposal in Paris last month for a truce with Israel. Osama Hamdan told reporters in Beirut that Hamas' response to the motion put forward by the United States, Egypt, Qatar and Israel will be based on multiple conditions, including a permanent ceasefire. Hamas has refused to release more hostages until Israel ends its offensive and withdraw from Gaza. The militant group also seeks a border agreement that includes a long-term truce and reconstruction, the lifting of the Israeli-Egyptian blockade on the territory, and the release of imprisoned prisoners. In Israel prisons, international mediators will continue working to close wide gaps between Israel and Hamas over a proposed ceasefire agreement.
The movement has received the general framework proposal that was circulated at the Paris conference or in the Paris Quartet meeting that was held recently, and we here confirm that our study of the aforementioned general framework proposal and the discussion and leadership consultation about it are based on the negotiations reaching a complete end to the terrorist aggression against our Palestinian people, a complete withdrawal of the occupation army from the Gaza Strip, and an end to the ongoing siege of the Strip for 17 years, securing shelter for the displaced, reconstruction of what the occupation destroyed in its Nazi aggression, and an end to the human suffering of our people. And if a serious prisoner exchange deal is permitted, an international recognition of the right of our people to self-determination and the establishment of its independent, fully sovereign state with Jerusalem as its capital.
The Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces condemned the U.S. aggressions on the west of the Anbar district and confirmed that such actions will not go unpunished. Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces Chief Faleh Al-Fayyad described the U.S. aggression against the Akash and Al-Qaim regions as a direct attack on the position and dignity of the nation and urged the Iraqi parliament and all political forces to take a clear position regarding this action. Al-Fayyad said he will not accept the blood of the Iraqi people turned cheap political currency, and he said Washington's aggression will not go unanswered. The Iraqi official denounced the United States' manipulation of the issue of terrorism and demanded the immediate withdrawal of the U.S. troops from Iraq. On this note, Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani visited the Al-Hussein military hospital in Baghdad to see the wounded of the U.S. attack west of the country. He wished them a speedy recovery and ordered the hospital staff to provide them with all necessary care and treatments. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Find a short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Namibia's Vice President Nangolo Mbumba is sworn in as president following the death on Sunday of previous President Hage Geingob, a veteran of the country's liberation struggle who died at the age of 82 on Sunday. Tributes to the 82-year-old statesman poured in from African leaders who saw him as a hero of the anti-apartheid struggle. Recently, Geingob supported South Africa's complaint against Israel under the Genocide Convention and condemned Namibia's former colonial ruler, Germany, for opposing the case. Serving his second term as president, he revealed last month that he was being treated for cancer. Former Vice President Nangolo Mbumba was inaugurated as Geingob's successor as president on Sunday, along with new Vice President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah.
During this difficult period of mourning, I urge all Namibians to remain united and to keep the bereaved family, the bereaved Geingob family and clan in our prayers. I take on this heavy mantle, cognizant of the weight of this responsibility, to serve all people of Namibia with utmost dedication and commitment in the service of all citizens.
It's an honor, and with a sense of responsibility, that I have accepted the appointment to serve in the office of the Vice President.
In Senegal, the decision to postpone the presidential elections was welcomed by the former ruling Democratic Party, whose presidential candidate is Karim Wade. Wade's supporters were seen celebrating the delay of February 25th presidential election by President Macky Sall. The decision is due to, among other things, to the conflict between their candidate and the Constitutional Council, accused of corruption by the former ruling party. Several opposition figures rejected President Macky Sall's decision to postpone the election, and at least 2 of the 20 presidential candidates said they would continue with their campaign scheduled to begin on Sunday. It is planned that Sall's term ends on April the 2nd. The Senegalese electoral code requires 80 days in advance of the elections, which means that the earliest a new vote could be held is the last week of April.
This is President Macky Sall's balance sheet, and it is a damage and upsetting because he almost left with his head held high. But now, unfortunately, he's showing the true face. The masks are falling off. He's trying to pull off an electoral hold-up. What's that? It is a constitutional coup, and we won't accept it.
Never in Senegal's political history have we seen a situation like this. It's a dangerous precedent to be able to postpone a presidential election on the eve of its starts. It's unprecedented.
Meanwhile, in Senegal, opposition demonstrators and police clashed after President Macky Sall announced the indefinite delay of upcoming presidential elections scheduled for February 25, 2024. Protesters gathered in the capital city at the call of opposition candidates. The president pointed out that the reason for the delay the elections is to carry out an open national dialogue in order to meet the necessary conditions that guarantee a free, transparent and inclusive election. In turn, all presidential candidates expressed their rejection and assured that they would carry out their electoral campaigns in spite of all official cancellations. In Chile, the President Gabriel Boric arrived on Sunday morning in the city of Viña del Mar in the Valparaíso region to lead an emergency coordination meeting due to the serious forest fires. From the city of Quilpué, the President decreed 2 days of national mourning starting this Monday. Boric indicates that all of Chile suffers and mourns its dead and expresses his condolences to each of the victims who have lost a loved one and also to those who have lost their homes, their memories and their belongings. The President, who did not rule out internationality in the origin of the fires, said that those responsible will be pursued by the weight of the law. On Saturday, Boric decreed a state of emergency due to the catastrophe, due to the serious situation that Valparaíso has been experiencing since February 2nd due to the forest fires, which have left at least 64 dead and more than 1,000 homes burned. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.